I'm going to talk a little bit about how to identify an initial, I think this is for initial steps, focal therapy platform to get started. So I think that there's several principles that you have to adhere to for any technology in this space that would make essentially the optimal technology. You want that to be some degree of data and experience. You want that energy modality to be versatile and adaptable to different clinical scenarios. You want the procedure to be able to be quick. You want it to be a relatively easy and facile procedure with regards to both a learning curve and for your staff. You want it to be reliable, and what I mean by that is that based on the intent of what you're planning to treat, that's actually what happens. It needs to be accessible, and also there are, for those who are in clinical practice, it's really important that we need to understand the landscape of approval, reimbursement, and ultimately both cost to the health system and to the patient. So when we look through these different components, I'm just going to break it down. So with regards to data, we want that to be a fair amount of safety data so that we can understand the limitations of the technology. We want to be able to understand that it is effective, not just a safe procedure, but an effective procedure. And this comes with experience, ideally clinical trials. We want this technology to be versatile. So you want a technology that can address cancers in different gland sizes, different cancer locations, and also to be able to avoid vital structures. So when you think about a focal therapy modality, I think about it like when you're trying to pick out a car. So you want it to be fast. This is a Bugatti Chiron. You want it to be super easy. This is a Tesla. The Tesla can drive itself. It can park itself. And you want it to be reliable. The good old Honda Accord. You can drive that 150,000 miles and 200,000 miles and you'll be fine. But what do I drive? I drive a 2010 Hyundai Elantra, 0 to 60 in 9.1 seconds. So I looked that up. So it's not, I don't even think it meets that, to tell you the truth. It doesn't park or drive itself, but it is an automatic. So there's something to be said there. It has 148,000 miles. So it's reliable. It's Old Faithful. Okay, so the next thing we need to understand is approvals and reimbursement. There are different ways that a technology is approved. The vast majority, at least that's applicable to those in the US, are going to be FDA 510K approval, and then obviously internationally will be your specific national governments approving it. There is the consideration of government payments and also third-party payers and how that makes a difference. So for example, cryo is generally covered by both private payers and government payers. And at least where I work in the state of Michigan, a number of private payers and government payers have set out guidelines say that they specifically reimburse for focal cryoablation. So not just cryoablation, but focal cryoablation. For HIFU, the landscape is changing, but there have been local coverage decisions along different Medicare regions, and they've provided guidelines, and it's predominantly reimbursed in the salvage space. And there is a CPT code coming in 2021. There will be a Category 1 CPT code, which will essentially establish a level of, it's unknown at the current time, but it will establish a fair, I think, level of reimbursement starting in January 2021. And also, there are a number of technologies that may be approved, but not for a specific prostate cancer indication. And as a result of that, it does not make it into either guidelines or alternatively, because it has not been granted that specific indication. So for example, for prostate cancer ablation, rather than prostate tissue ablation or soft tissue ablation, really the only options here are to have a patient-pay procedure. And there are different dynamics in terms of being able to contract that out. It's a little bit outside of the scope of this talk. So which modality to use? You can't really pick winners or losers here because there is no single technology that meets every single criteria that I listed there. What I would say is for early users that you pick your poison, you pick your initial technology, and you understand what the limitations are of that technology. You carefully select your patients until you get a strong experience and confidence in the level in the treatment that you're trying to achieve and the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And then as you kind of grow that space, then you can add additional technologies to be able to address those deficiencies. I know that there are a number of people, Dr. Eric Barre, who's talked about the a la carte approach, which I think is likely going to be the best way to manage prostate cancer focally. However, I think that there are multiple different modalities that you can put together to address each other's deficiencies. What I will say is that at the meeting in 2020, this is also going to be supported by Focal Therapy Society, we will have a dedicated session towards coding, towards reimbursement, towards billing, in terms of how do you contract with a technology company, what is the payment to a hospital, ASC, payment to a patient practice. Those are really important concepts that if people are interested in learning. So thank you very much.